Take one tiny colored stone, then another, and another. Thousands of stones later, you get this 1,500-year-old work of art, not just a mosaic masterpiece, but a window into a radical change and a golden age in the city of Jerusalem. The mosaic, with an inscription in the Armenian language, once decorated the floor of a church built here in the time of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine period, beginning in the 4th century CE, saw the Christianization of the Roman Empire and of Jerusalem itself. The former Jewish capital, which had become a provincial backwater under the pagan Roman Empire, suddenly became central to the most powerful religious story of the age, the gospel of Jesus of Nazareth. Most of the holiest sites of Christianity happened to be in this small town in the Judean hills. In the year 326 CE, the most influential pilgrim of the age arrived in Jerusalem. This was Helena, mother of the Emperor Constantine. Helena, who was a fervent Christian, ordered the construction of the city's first major church, the Holy Sepulchre, also known as the Church of the Resurrection. The building marked, and still marks, the site where Christians believe that Jesus was crucified, entombed, and restored to life. Today, everyone is used to grand churches, so it's possible to miss the religious revolution that this one represents. When the first Christians began praying together in the Roman Empire, nearly 3 centuries earlier in the religion's first decades, persecution by pagan authorities forced them to find secret places to worship. One of the most famous of these is the catacombs of Rome, burial tunnels hidden under the city. Early Christians used the catacombs for communal meals that they called love feasts, one of the earliest forms of Christian practice. Sometimes secret churches were repurposed from residential homes. These have been found, for example, in the city of Dora Europos in what is now Syria, and at Capernaum, here in Israel. But in Jerusalem, archaeologists haven't found traces of anything similar. What we have here are churches that were never secret, quite the opposite. Christianity was no longer an underground faith. It had become the dominant belief system of the world's most powerful empire. The new churches were built as grandly and as publicly as possible by official authorities, marking a transformation in the Christian religion, in the Byzantine Empire, and in the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, which had been just a small Roman town, wasn't nearly big enough to accommodate all the pilgrims who began arriving at the holy sites mentioned in Christian scripture. New neighborhoods were built and new quarters added, all centered around the holiest site of them all, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And as the city grew, so did the number of pilgrims. Christians from across the known world set out on long journeys to see the holy places with their own eyes. They left traces that are still clearly visible. On this pillar at the sepulchre, for example. In the ancient world, people rarely traveled far from home, and yet astonishing numbers of people, driven by faith or curiosity, were willing to embark on dangerous journeys of many months over sea and land, from Persia or Armenia, or even from Gaul, at the western extremity of the Roman Empire. To accommodate the flood of visitors, the church began to build pilgrim lodgings. These were usually attached to monasteries. Archaeologists have uncovered 2 such complexes, one on the northern side of the city, near Damascus Gate, and another to the west, by Jaffa Gate. These were massive facilities, complete with dining halls, bathhouses, and even cemeteries for those visitors who were unfortunate, or perhaps fortunate, enough to die on their pilgrimage and be buried in the holy city. Thanks to one surviving source, the famous Madaba map, which we looked at in an earlier episode, we have a good idea of what Byzantine Jerusalem looked like. As the city grew and filled with people, wide and stately streets began to appear, leading pilgrims and residents from grand gates to towering new churches, and from monasteries to bustling public plazas. Some of the pilgrims who came here from other countries liked it so much that they decided to stay. At first, this international mix of people lived together in shared monasteries, communicating in the common language of the time, which was Greek. As more and more people came, they began to split up into smaller national centers. One of the oldest of these is the Armenian Church. The mosaic with which we began comes from a chapel that belonged to an Armenian monastery near the Damascus Gate. In a crypt beneath the monastery, ancient tombs have been found with Armenian inscriptions. The mosaic, created in the 6th century CE, was uncovered during construction in the late 1800s. It was later moved to the Armenian Museum, where you can find it today. The inscription reads, "For the memorial and salvation of all Armenians whose names are known to the Lord." The artist has chosen to portray a large clay vessel, an amphora, commonly used in the ancient world to store oil or wine. From the vessel grows a vine that curls into clusters of grapes, and inside each curl sits a bird, one of which is inside a cage. To create the delicate effect of color and shade, the craftsmen used nothing but local stones. It's quite incredible, but there's no artificial coloring here at all. It's all just natural rocks. Of all the periods of the city's life before modern times, the Byzantine layer is the richest for archaeologists, because in many ways, this was the city's golden age. Jerusalem wasn't nearly as big as Rome or Constantinople, but it was considered one of the empire's major cities, and without a doubt, the city of most spiritual importance. Jerusalem was never close to any body of water or major trade route. It has nothing in the way of natural resources. Urban life here was driven by one main industry: religion. Byzantine Jerusalem wasn't a center of finance or politics or a pleasant place to come to relax. Instead, what it offered was a special connection to God and history. That's still true today.